You're listening to episode 11. How's it
Hello.
going, Casey?
It's going
Hello.
good. How are you, my friend?
Doing good. Doing good. Just surviving the Houston pollen season right now. It is terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
nothing
can
like
hear it.
I know. It's nothing like that Colorado weather.
No, although it's been super windy.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
it's still
springtime in the Rockies is wind season,
I
which most
know.
people don't realize, but
It's so pretty
lovely.
though. Yeah. I know I cut our grass yesterday and I was pretty much sneezing the whole time. About halfway through, my body was just like, can't handle it. But
No, done.
yeah, I got through it.
Now, do you have any allergy remedies or things that you're trying to
Oh
help?
man. Yeah, so I'm doing, like vitamin A drops, like Liquid A, by Apex, just making sure I'm getting my vitamin D too as well. And then Designs for Health has something called Immunotone. So it's got just different like mushrooms and other herbs in there. So boosting your immune system. I'm doing that kind of stuff. Of course, like elderberry. Oh gosh, what else? Warm water with lemon, that kind of thing, just to
Mhm.
help with my detox systems. Phase 1, phase 2, but other than that, no, just kind of riding it out. People are always like, you should take something like that. I'm like, I'm just gonna not take anything like Zyrtex or something. So
Yeah.
just gonna suffer instead. But it's cool. It's not so bad. Now, one thing that I am loving and doing lately, so I went and got some blood work done about a week ago, and my iron was surprisingly a little bit low.
Mm.
And so I've been actually super digging liver pate lately. And I know that that sounds pretty gross to probably most people. And it at one point sounded really gross to me too. But I found this awesome, and I wish I knew the brand, but I don't. Awesome pate at Sprouts that I get that's
Oh,
made.
already pre-made.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
awesome.
It is so good. And there's like three different versions. One is like truffle something, one is like black pepper something, and then there's another one that's just like pate and then some weird word. Sorry guys, I just can't remember right now. But anyways, the pate one with the one word behind it, it's so descriptive, Megan. That is the cleanest one. So it's literally like pork liver and just a couple other spices and ingredients. So it's really good. So
Nice.
I'm super digging that, trying to get my iron up. So
I wish that somebody would just give me liver pate and tell me it was like baba ganoush or something. And I'm sure I would love it and be like, oh my God, this is the best baba ganoush I've ever had.
yep.
But just not knowing that it's
Yeah.
liver pate, because I feel like I've done like a liver shot before where it
Mm-hmm.
was just frozen liver with a couple of frozen strawberries and just like
Oh,
blended it up. It was brutal.
that sounds terrible.
It was real bad.
Ugh.
And so I kind of traumatized myself
Yeah.
with
That
that.
sounds,
But I mean, you had a meet. Oh my God. Like the energy afterwards was amazing.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean it's
yeah.
it's really really amazing, benefits and support that we get from eating something like liver because we don't ever eat it that often. I mean, people just aren't eating liver anymore. So the amino acids, the proteins, the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients, I mean it's so like nutrient dense. It's just a nutrient dense food. So it's really really good for us. Builds up our iron.
Mhm.
So I'm enjoying it. But yes, I mean, it took me a long time to come around to it, but I finally did, and I actually really like it. I put it on top of some Mary's Gone crackers, those
Oh,
gluten-free crackers, or
nice.
just even with like celery. The other day, I actually ate it with salmon. Like the fresh raw salmon that you can buy in those packets that already has like dill. It's like cracker salmon. Anyways, I ate it with that, and it was really good.
Oh, okay.
hmm So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm digging lately. What about you, Miss Case? What are you digging?
Well, mine's not nearly as exciting, but kind of exciting. So I got this new lipstick. It just came out this week. It's called Garden Party. So it's this really pretty, like pink color. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see it there, and I'm actually wearing it right now. But this is from Beauty Counter, so it is a safer lipstick and doesn't have those gnarly ingredients like lead in it. And there were also two other colors that came out. One is called Twilight, and the other one I'm totally blanking on. I can't remember the other name. But what I was also really excited about is check out the package that it came in. Like, look how small that is. So Beauty Counter is definitely, you know, being a B corporation, cognizant of the packaging that they're using. And so they made this package really small, which
that's awesome. Yeah.
And I have so it actually came in a set of 8. And I'm trying to find that other one. It was Twilight, which made me think of that series, that book series. And I couldn't stop thinking about vampires, like hashtag Team Edward. Backstage is the other one. And this is just like a really pretty kind of like brownish color. I haven't personally tried it yet, but it looks pretty on the models. And everybody who's tried it. So yeah, all super exciting things, new lipsticks and less packaging. So that's super cool.
Yes.
And also, let's see, I'm trying to think, we were briefly chatting about half marathon type stuff. So a couple of weeks ago, I was actually supposed to run a half marathon, but I realized that I already had a qualifying time for the Pikes Peak Ascent, which is a run up Pikes Peak. And if you guys aren't familiar with Pikes Peak, it is a 14,000 foot mountain in Colorado Springs. So the race starts at Manitou Springs and then goes up to the top of Pikes Peak. So it's about just over 13 miles. And so I'm going to be running that in August.
That's awesome.
Which I'm super stoked about. But I was even more stoked to not have to run the road half marathon just to get a qualifying time, that I still had one from a half Ironman I did a couple years back.
Ooh, even a couple years back, it still counts?
Yeah. So any race in 2016, it just had to be under 2 hours and 25 minutes, which my half marathon was under that in Galveston when I did the half Ironman.
Cool.
So I was super pumped.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Races are fun.
They are.
They're super fun. Well, I'm excited for you.
Keeping you guys posted on training and nutrition and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I myself am doing the Cypress Half Marathon here in Houston on November 11th.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm kind of excited to start training again, like run training, because I haven't been doing that for a couple of years. So I'm excited.
Yeah, me neither. So
you and me both, girl. We can tag each other.
Yay for getting back into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Super cool.
Super fun. All right, so today we are doing something a little different. We had our first call for questions from our audience. So we got quite a few questions. So we're just going to answer a couple of them today, and then we will follow up with another episode and finish answering these questions. So our first one, we have a couple that are skincare related, and then we also have some that are nutrition related. So I'm going to start off with the skincare related one. So our friend Tara Coughlan, she's in school to become a nutritional therapy practitioner. She graduates in June, I believe. She asked us about Derma Rolling, whether it is good or bad. So Megan, have you heard of Derma Rolling, or do you know what it is at all?
I've heard of it, but I'm not super familiar, nor have I done it.
Good, because I'm going to go with it is a big fat bad.
Ooh.
For your skin. I do not recommend it for home use whatsoever. And there's a certain company, which I will not name, that sells a package with a derma roller in it. And I see people posting with this derma roller, and they are just utterly destroying their skin, to put it lightly. So what a derma roller is, imagine, it's like a little roller, almost like a lint roller, but it has these little metal things on the end of it, like needles almost, and you just roll it on your skin. But you can actually like press decently hard. I mean, it's as like you're using your own pressure. So the thing with this, like what it claims to do is it claims to push product deeper into your skin, and then it helps to boost collagen production and help with like fine lines and wrinkles, all of this kind of stuff. But what it's actually doing is creating these micro punctures in your skin. And so that's why, immediately your skin may look a little bit better, like the fine lines and wrinkles are going to disappear. But that's because your skin is swollen because you have been injuring it.
Ouch.
And then on another note, there is, think about it. You're not going to keep this thing sanitary or be able to. So you're pulling it out of, I imagine people pulling it out of their drawer with their hairbrushes and, like picking hair out of it or lint out of it, whatever. And then they're rolling it on their face. So it would be kind of like a drug user reusing a needle.
Oh my gosh, Casey.
Yeah. So,
oh, that sounds terrible.
yeah. So they're super popular among, like some skincare enthusiasts. And I said that there's another company that sells this as part of like a package, but I definitely say stay the heck away from it because it is just going to be damaging your skin. It's not really helping to get the products into your skin any deeper, anything like that.
Ouch.
So, yeah, big fat no on the Derma rollers. And if you have one, burn it.
Good to know. Well, I'm glad that's something I never invested in.
Yeah, waste of money.
Yeah, that just sounds really painful. I mean, our poor skin, think about what it's doing like on a cellular level. It's just like puncturing cells and breaking them apart. Ooh, it just sounds terrible. Your poor face is like, what is happening?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, it's one of the, like, there's another treatment called microneedling, which is done by a licensed trained professional. And it's much more like it's sanitary and the needle can only go so deep into the skin. So that one, I don't know. I personally have never done it and I've never had it done to myself. I've seen pretty good results from it. But again, I think it is all dependent on the skill of the esthetician. And there is a lot of potential for more damage to the skin than good to the skin. I definitely go with any of my skincare is progressive rather than aggressive. Because I think that there's just so much that we can do with overexfoliation and these really harsh treatments that they just damage your skin more than what's needed.
Yeah. Yeah, especially stuff like these chemical peels and things like that people are into. Oh my gosh. I mean, talk about the crazy, crazy ingredients that are in these things. I mean, I don't know exactly, what people are using after they derma roll, but especially if their face wash or exfoliant or toner or anything, is toxic, it is just literally opening up gaps for these toxins to just whoop right into the skin.
Yeah.
And, once things are put on our skin and especially like get into them, not even absorb faster. I mean, it takes 26 seconds for them to get into our bloodstream. So I can't imagine it might be a little bit quicker with a derma roller.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, you're basically just like opening up your skin. You're like, here, let me wound you a little bit and then put some parabens in there just for good measure. But, going off of your comment of chemical peels, there are a couple of safer alternatives for chemical peels that you can actually do at home. I say that with caution because you have to read the instructions so you don't end up burning your face off with them because, I mean, it's definitely possible. And with chemical peels, more is not better. But I'm actually a huge fan of chemical peels because it does that exfoliation. It gets down to that cellular level without being overly like harsh on your skin, like in terms of like really scrubbing it. And so, it kind of goes back to the not all chemicals are bad and not everything natural is safe, like how water is a chemical, but poison ivy is a botanical.
Right. Yeah. Good point. Good point. I'm glad you touched on that because my only really experience with chemical peels is I know that we had a lady come to the office the other day and was trying to get us to do them in the office. And I looked at the ingredients and I was just like, this is freaking nuts, like parabens and all kinds of other stuff. And the chemical that they were using was so potent to a degree where our nurse practitioner would have to be the one to give these chemical peels, and like nobody could take them home. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So I'm glad you touched on there are safer options out there for anyone out there that's doing safe chemical peels. It sounds like you could be in the clear, but just make sure you're doing those right ones that Casey's talking about and not the ones that I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they work really, really well. So, I mean, not that we want to tell people to use, ingredients that aren't safe or anything, but let's say, like once a year, you want to get some really good exfoliation if you have really bad acne scarring or, some major issues that just need to be repaired like that, go get one once a year.
Okay.
Go to a licensed professional. Make sure that, if it's anything where you're kind of wondering like, should I be doing this? Do I have to buy it on like the dark side of Amazon? I don't even know if there's a dark side of Amazon. Like go to the dark web, the black web, whatever it's called, and buy a chemical peel. Don't do it yourself. Hire someone.
It's worth the $100.
Yes, exactly, for that person's expertise. But yeah, chemical peels, when done right, are an amazing solution for a lot of skincare issues.
All right. Well, I stand corrected. Casey, you might have to do a chemical peel on me one day.
Yeah, I love chemical peels.
Oh, fun. Okay, I've never had
that was my bread and butter when I had my little shop.
Okay. Fun. See, yeah. I even learned something new on this podcast every day.
I know. Yay.
Okay. Super cool. All right. So no derma rolling. That's what we learned.
Burn it.
All right.
If you have one.
No to that. Okay. Up next. So I had a friend ask me a question about Wheat Belly. So the book Wheat Belly. He asked me what are my thoughts on gluten-free diets and what are some good affordable alternatives to wheat-based products. So this is for my good friend Anthony. And so, okay, first I kind of want to get into some definitions so that people out there who also have this question and are confused about gluten and gluten-free diets and whether they should go gluten-free and what all the crave and trend is about. So gluten is a mixture of proteins found in all grains. Okay, I'm talking all grains. So even your, mostly wheat, barley, rye, but there's even some of these protein molecules found in like corn, rice, quinoa, and oats, right? So the one that we're talking about, the gliadin, is the most commonly researched gluten protein molecule, which is found mostly in wheat, barley, and rye. Okay, so that's gluten is a protein. We've got that, and some people had a lot of sensitivities to it. Now there's different sensitivity levels to gluten, and different people respond in different ways to it. Everyone is different, right? It goes back to the bio-individuality of all of us. So gluten can cause a lot of issues in different people in different ways. So, hormone disruptions, digestive problems, which is a really big one. A lot of people get those digestive issues, right? Like cramping, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, that kind of stuff. It can even do like nerve damage, skin diseases. So if you've got, eczema, psoriasis, any of that kind of stuff going on, and you've ever considered going gluten-free, I definitely encourage it. Go gluten-free, see if that helps with your skin conditions. Autoimmune diseases as well. So one thing about autoimmune disease is it all starts in the gut, right? So we eat our food, there's some sort of maldigestion going on, and improper food particles get into our bloodstream through our intestinal lining, and then our self is attacking the self, right? So these protein molecules, they're attacking these protein molecules that aren't supposed to be there, but then they keep floating down the stream and they see our joints or our thyroid or whatever it might be, those other protein, molecules that look like whatever it is attacking. So it's attacking ourself, right? That's an autoimmune disease. So this can be triggered by a gluten sensitivity, right? If you've got a gluten sensitivity, you've got inflammation, you've got these improper food particles getting into the bloodstream, bam, there's your autoimmune disease. So if you've got any of this going on and you've never looked into going gluten-free, definitely try it. I encourage it. See if you've got a sensitivity to these gluten proteins. So now, a couple of just differences out there, right? There's gluten sensitivity and there's gluten intolerance as well as celiac disease. So all three, different things, right? So the gluten sensitivity and gluten intolerance, they can trigger disease. So if they are not, if you've got a gluten sensitivity or gluten intolerance, so a gluten intolerance also is just the inability to digest something, right? So if you're intolerant to gluten, your body cannot digest it. It is a non-immune reaction. There is just something in your GI tract that, can't tolerate those gluten protein molecules. And so it has an intolerance to it, or your body just doesn't have enough enzymes to react and digest these proteins. So intolerance is just like a GI thing. And so gluten sensitivity is an immune response. So it is literally the immune system detecting gluten in your system, and then there's a reaction that recurs as a result of that gluten being detected and that exposure that you're giving yourself to gluten. So gluten sensitivity, gluten intolerance are not a disease, right? They are just a state of genetics, but if ignored, can trigger disease. So that's exactly what I was getting to with gluten sensitivity and gluten intolerance can trigger disease. So like rheumatoid arthritis, cancer, even, issues with asthma, thyroid disease, bone loss. So you talk about osteoporosis. And, gluten is not the only cause of the disease, but it should be ruled in or out with every person. So anyone that's having digestive issues, anyone that's got an autoimmune condition, anyone that's got a disease or is starting to get pushed towards that disease, model of conventional medicine, you really need to look into, okay, is there a gluten sensitivity or gluten intolerance going on here? Because you really want to rule that in or rule that out. If that's going on, you need to eliminate gluten. If you can handle it, that's another thing. We'll get there in a second. So, okay, so he asked just how I feel about it. So kind of with all of this information, right? It's a protein that's found in grains. People respond to it in different ways. You're either sensitive to it or you're not, and you need to figure out if you're sensitive to it. But my whole thing is, so gluten is not the grain that it once was a long, long, long time ago, right? Like our ancestors were eating wheat that was grown in a field that was not given, or sprayed with pesticides, glyphosate, Roundup. It was just clean. It was natural. And now it is unfortunately grown in a field that is, it's a crop that is genetically modified, sprayed with glyphosate, Roundup, and we're exposed to these chemicals when we eat gluten. So unless you're getting like an organic, non-GMO, clean source, you are more than likely getting a bleached, blanched, genetically modified source of this grain. That's what's making people sick. So unless you know what you're putting into your body, unless you're buying something like, a company like Ezekiel Bread, they have properly sourced, sprouted their products, right? You can read about that kind of stuff. Something like that is okay in moderation. If you're just going to the store and you're buying pita bread and, tortilla chips and just other like breads, making sandwiches and stuff like that, that's the stuff you really, really need to be cautious with. That is the stuff that I tell people to ex-nay out of the diet. That is why America is fat and sick. Period. So I feel pretty strongly about gluten. I don't know. I
couldn't tell.
Yeah, sorry. Well, with most of my clients, it's like they cut out gluten and they feel so much better. Right? Like their brain fog goes away. They're not as tired anymore. They're sleeping better. Their, bowel movements are regular. And they're like, if they have arthritis or joint pain, that kind of goes away or regresses. I mean, it's like, it does a world of a difference for literally 99.9 of my clients that I meet with. And, people really need to think about it. If you've got, I'm sitting here talking about like gluten causes rheumatoid arthritis and cancer and other diseases, and that's pretty out there. But even if you have symptoms like hair loss, anxiety, arthritis, abdominal pain, like that cramping after you eat, especially like crazy diarrhea or constipation, which is like a normal thing for you. If you've got ADHD or have a child with ADHD, autism is affected definitely by gluten. And, also depression, eczema, psoriasis. So we talked about those skin conditions, insomnia, any autoimmune conditions, infertility, obesity, PMS, even something like a UTI. I know that is so far-fetched to think like, how can a UTI be connected with gluten? But it's literally the way that the gluten is processed in our body, turns into glucose, feeds yeast, bam, UTI, creates an issue. So if any of these symptoms, if you've got any of this stuff going on, this is for you, my friend. This is for you. So definitely do like a 3-week no gluten test. And 3 weeks is a pretty good time for it to get out of your system. But then also after 3 weeks, when you reintroduce it, if you've got some sensitivity or intolerance or an issue with it, you're going to feel it. So definitely just cut it out, see how you feel. And I mean, it'll make a world of a difference. So most definitely. And then, so we talked about like gluten sensitivity and gluten intolerance, and then I just kind of want to go on because I mentioned earlier how those things can trigger disease. So beyond, the other diseases that I mentioned, celiac disease. So that is a consequence of an immunological reaction to gluten. So before someone is diagnosed with celiac disease, which everyone knows is like the gluten disease. So before you get diagnosed with celiac, you have some sort of gluten sensitivity or some sort of gluten intolerance happening in your body that you are probably not aware of. And the longer that you ignore those symptoms, that's what triggers this celiac disease. Now, celiac disease is triggered by genetics and environment. So it's the genetics that you carry, but it's also the environment. So the environment meaning if you keep eating gluten and you've got that sensitivity or intolerance going on and you've been ignoring that, bam, that's your environment that triggers your genetics that gives you celiac disease. So, and also just for people out there who aren't familiar with celiac disease, it's an autoimmune disease of the small intestine that is caused by gluten-induced damage. So it's not fun. But yeah, so Anthony, I hope that kind of answers your question. Casey, did I do a good job of answering his question?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I was going to add, and I just heard this great kind of analogy for kind of what gluten does to our insides. You imagine it's kind of like poison ivy on your gut.
Yeah, totally.
Like, that's kind of the way. It's just very irritating and just, when you're eating that store-bought Wonder Bread, just imagine like poison ivy on the inside of your gut lining. And I love your suggestion of, seeing if you are sensitive to it by just cut, gluten out for 3 weeks. It's going to be harder than you think it's going to be, but it is so telling. I know when I've cut gluten out, when I was eating a bunch of it, like I'll actually have psoriasis show back up when I'm having, basically too much gluten and alcohol. Those are my two kind of triggers for my psoriasis. Yeah. But, just cutting that out, it is amazing how much just inflammation, like especially midsection too, it's just like kind of shrinks up. Yeah. And, I'm sure that you've had this experience too with some of your sugar detox peeps, how they just talk about how maybe they haven't been on the scale, but they're like, I am just literally shrinking like my whole body. And I'm just like, I feel less inflamed. And I mean, of course, like we've talked about sugar and everything, but they also cut out gluten during that time as well. And it's just amazing how different people feel when they cut it out.
Gluten is straight up inflammatory. I really don't recommend it for anyone. Again, it goes back to if you're getting it from like an organic, non-GMO source, you are soaking and sprouting it yourself and then making bread, biscuits, tortillas, whatever it might be, but people are not doing that. And if you're not doing that, then I guess my like straight up answer would be like, don't eat gluten.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I feel about gluten-free diets is I think that they are so beneficial for everyone. I mean, gluten is causing so many issues nowadays from mental to digestive. I mean, it's crazy.
Now,
So,
what do you think about people just going to the store and just buying like tons of gluten-free stuff?
okay, so
You, I mean,
yeah, that's a really, really, really good question. Okay, so a lot of the times when we're like, all right, so I need you to go gluten free, and then you follow up 4, 6, 8 weeks later, and their food journal. I'm talking about my clients. Their food journals are all gluten free toast, and then I had a gluten free sandwich for lunch, and then I had gluten free pasta, and I had some gluten free crackers as a snack. And it's like, whoa, 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 guys, hold the phone. I'm really glad to see that you're making an effort to go gluten free, but you also have to think that their mentality is still somewhere where they feel like every single meal has to have one of these starchier carbohydrate type, foods. And it's like, where's your, vegetables? Where's your protein? Where's your healthy fat at? I mean, I know there's a little bit in there, but that's what we need to be eating the most of, not focusing on, okay, what can I pile on top of pasta, or what kind of sandwich can I make, or what kind of wrap can I, make, or what can I eat with my toast, or gluten-free cereal. I mean, all these carbohydrate dense foods. I mean, they're still man-made processed products, right?
yeah, they still have ingredient lists that are
Uh-huh.
3 inches long.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those things like gluten free does not equal healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can still buy a bunch of gluten free toxic crap.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. A
Yeah.
gluten-free chocolate muffin, like, if that's your breakfast, we need to switch that up.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's still a chocolate muffin at the end
yeah.
of the day. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, I'm glad you're doing gluten free. That's amazing, but you still got to think about the sugar. You still got to think about all of those, rice flours, almond flour, cassava flour. And I'm not saying those things don't have their place in the time. They totally do. I make my tortillas with cassava flour and I freaking love them. But that is very, in moderation. That is not all the time.
mhm.
And so definitely, yeah, I mean, those really good point, Casey. You don't want to just go gluten free and then switch it out for all of these gluten free products. Now, another part of Anthony's question was, what are some good affordable alternatives to wheat-based products?
Mm.
So I think that there's a lot of really great gluten-free companies out there. I really do.
Mhm.
So Siete Tortillas is out of Austin. They are an amazing family-owned company. They make tortilla chips and tortillas. So I mean,
Those chips, I
so
mean, they're kind of like Pringles. Once you pop, you cannot stop. Like those single serve bags, OMG, so good.
that's hilarious. They're not single serve, but they are when you eat them. So,
Yeah, it
yes.
says five,
Yeah.
whatever.
Anyway, yes, exactly. They are that good. They
Yeah.
are that good, my friend. So, stuff like that, right? You can still make like nachos with these almond, coconut, cassava flour based tortilla chips, a much healthier option. You put some organic, pasture raised chicken on top with some organic cultured cheese, a little bit of salsa, a little bit of avocado, maybe some organic black beans. Boom. You've got an awesome, natural, clean nacho version right there, right? Same thing with the tortillas, tacos, you name it, wraps, whatever. So Siete is a great, great brand. Now, again, it goes back to eating that kind of stuff in moderation, right? Still man-made in a package. So what else? Canyon Bakehouse. They are a company that I really, really like for like hamburger buns, hot dog buns, and breads. So Canyon Bakehouse is a really good gluten-free company where you can get some awesome bread. And oh gosh, I feel like there's so many gluten-free products out there that I tend to grab here and there. Mary's Gone Crackers.
Oh, yeah, those are good.
Yeah, Mary's Gone Crackers. I mentioned them earlier. They are just like a seed and nut grain based gluten-free cracker. So that's what I eat my pate with that I mentioned earlier. And I mean, those are kind of like my staples. I feel like anything tortilla or tortilla chip, I go to Siete. Anything cracker, it's like Mary's Gone Crackers, maybe a couple other gluten-free brands that you can find at like Sprouts and stuff like that. Breads, it's usually Canyon Bakehouse, maybe Udi's, I think is the other one.
Yeah, Udi's,
I don't like
I don't feel well when I eat their stuff. It's interesting because we were getting their, I think it was like hot dog or hamburger buns
Mm-hmm.
or like their tortillas.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it was,
Mm-hmm.
but I was not feeling good
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I
I
was
mean,
eating
all
them.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When I do like gluten-free, like hamburger buns, stuff like that, it's very rare. So I tend to get the brands that I really love and like. And it's normally I just stick with like Siete, the Canyon Bakehouse, Mary's Gone Crackers. And then you guys, the other thing that I absolutely freaking love and I discovered, and I think Alex and I probably now do frozen pizza night twice a month is Against the Grain. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Danielle Walker. So Against the Grain, there is a frozen pizza that you can now find at Sprouts. I know it's at Whole Foods. I think you can also find it at like HEB, just depending on where you're at. Check your stores. It's called Against the Grain, and it is a frozen gluten-free pizza. And I'm telling you, it is literally the best like frozen gluten-free pizza I've ever had. They are so good. The pesto one is my favorite, and then they have a 3 cheese one that's super super good. And then they also have pepperoni for meat lovers out there. But those are kind of like my gluten-free stick tos, and I really don't have them up that often because I just try to fill my plate with like protein, like an animal that I can recognize, vegetables that grew out of the ground, and healthy fats in, coconut, avocado, olive forms. So that's pretty much it. So those gluten-free options come here and there, and like I said, I really kind of stick to those very few and select companies because I really love the way they taste, and I love supporting them, and I don't eat them that often. So that's pretty much what I stick to.
Yeah. Or you can, like I make my own hamburger buns or hot dog buns. I have sourdough starter.
Yeah,
I mean, let's go old school.
I know. I'm just
I'm
not.
such a grandma, but it's so funny, when you talk about making bread, how it used to just be so commonplace,
Mhm.
and now it's like, not
So,
commonplace. Like when I
no.
show people Stuart the sourdough starter, they're like,
Mhm.
"Oh my gosh, like how do you even know this kind of stuff?" And
Right?
it's crazy, but
And it's so
it,
simple too.
it is. And I think we have just lost touch
Mhm.
with how stuff is made. And I
It's
mean, we can go on a whole other tangent about like farming and,
yeah.
you raise your own chickens, that kind of thing, just how out of touch people are with
Mhm.
where their food comes from and how do you even make a loaf of bread?
Yeah. It's really sad. It's
Mhm.
really sad. I was actually having a conversation with my friend earlier who is actually now in Europe currently, and he literally texted me just to tell me, he was like, "Oh my gosh, the food here is like a million times better than America." And I was like, "Yes, I am very well aware. Our food system absolutely sucks. Like the big food giants are absolutely dominating this industry and completely ruining everything we are putting into our mouths. And that is why America is sicker and fatter than ever in the history of humankind."
Mhm.
And he was like, "I just want to like move here because everything we've eaten is so clean." And he was talking to me about how his girlfriend actually has a issue with candida. She's got a candida overgrowth that she's been dealing with for about 8 months now. And here in America, she reacts to a lot of different foods. So she has to be really careful about her diet. And he says over there, they've been like eating desserts and other things that she would not be able to absolutely tolerate whatsoever here in America. And she's able to have like, a couple bites of this dessert and she's just fine. And I was like, it's probably because that dessert is made with real wholesome ingredients that are probably sourced from not that far away.
Mhm.
So it's insane what our food industry is like in today's world. It's so sad.
Yeah. I mean, just goes to show we have to be our own advocates
Yeah.
and
It's
really pay attention to what we're buying, what we're eating, what we
mhm.
put on our skin.
Mhm.
We have to be cognizant of it because there's nobody watching our backs
No.
about it.
Yep. America is absolutely the worst country in the world for the food industry. I hate to say it and I hate to break it to those people out there that don't want to believe it, but it is so true. And it's so sad because, we think of our country as like a little ahead of the game with, some other things, but this that food industry, it's all about money. It's all about how they can keep getting us to buy their products. So they're putting sugar and artificial flavoring and preservatives and all kinds of stuff in there so they stay self stable, and it makes it taste better, and it is creating the health epidemic that we are seeing today. And yeah, I mean, if more people would just make their own freaking bread, we could we could get back to some of our roots, and people wouldn't be as sick, you know?
Yeah.
So
Hashtag be like grandma.
dude, be like your grandma. Ate what your grandma ate.
Yes, exactly.
Be much better off. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love, in the last like year, 2 years, I've really played around with making my own kombucha and beet kvass and sauerkraut and bread and yogurts. Oh gosh, what else? I mean, we do a bunch of like raw dog food and other stuff for our dogs, which is kind of cool just to have that experience as well. But it's been awesome, and it's so fun. Like, just pick like a weekend night and just make something you've never made, kind of going out of your comfort zone kind of thing.
Mhm.
And you'll be surprised at how much fun you have and how freaking easy it is. Most of these things, it's like the food ingredient and water and some salt and maybe like a culture starter or something, and that's really it.
Yeah.
And a
Yeah,
glass
when you're
jar.
making all of this stuff, you realize like how important salt is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
it's pretty incredible.
Good quality salt.
Yeah, exactly. Not Morton's iodized.
No, not talking about the table salt here,
Yeah.
people.
I don't think they're going to be a show sponsor. No. All right. Well, do you
Yeah.
think I should answer this other question about facial stuff, or should we save it for another episode?
Well, let's see.
I feel like let's save it for another episode because I can go on for a while. Because our question is the difference in skin types,
Oh,
best
yes.
care / facials for each.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jen, we will save that question for our next question episode.
All right, Jen, we promise we'll get back to you.
Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, Casey can really get into this stuff. The difference in skin types. I mean, you've got a whole bunch of different skin types, and obviously skin changes with the seasons, that kind of thing. Best care facials for each. Yeah. And Casey, I mean, I would love for you to elaborate on that kind of stuff and get into like the ingredients. And
Yeah.
I know when you talk about hyaluronic acid and how it puts hydration into our skin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I just love that kind of stuff.
I will make one quick note, just a general, I guess, skincare tidbit. As we are changing seasons, since we're officially in spring now, I guess for a little while, our skincare routines should change with the season. So you definitely do not want to be using the same exact products in the same order that you were using in December. Now that it is April and we are starting to get, I'm sure it's starting to get humid in Houston, our skincare changes and our needs change throughout the seasons. So if you guys have any questions about, oh crap, I've been using, the same skincare for the past 10 years every single season, let us know, and we are happy to make some product recommendations just to change it up so you're giving your skin the TLC that it needs in each season.
Okay. Ooh, thanks for that tip. I actually need to switch up my routine as you say that.
Excellent.
Yes. Thanks for being a good reminder.
Of course. All right, guys. Well, that is it for episode 11. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yep. Enjoy the rest of your week, guys.